So a few days ago, I did this video on Colonel McGregor and just showed you where his sources were coming from. And I was trying to appeal to people who don't trust Western media, but somehow are willing to listen to filtered Russian state media. So here was Doug McGregor talking about the casualty rate in the counteroffensive so far, just briefly.
10 fighters, 2 helicopters. The Russians, by comparison, had 71 men killed and 210 wounded.
71 and 210 wounded. And then I showed you a little bit further into it, let's go about here, that what he was quoting was, in total, the repulse of the enemy offensive, joint group forces, 71 servicemen were killed and 210 were injured. And that came directly from RT. And that's really the misery here, that he's quoting RT and people are listening to it because they don't trust Western media. And then I got comments like this guy: if you want to be led, listen to the professor who tells you what to believe. We are taught from a very young age to believe everything an authority figure has to say to us, which the media and governments use as a tool to create an aura of credibility to whatever issue these authority figures, often government-backed authority figures, speak about. If you want to get closer to the real perspective on the war, go as close as possible to the objective source. And then he went on and on from there, but he didn't even watch anything I said. This is what I said at the end of the video.
Gregor and Scott Ritter. Thank you for your time. If that meant anything at all to you, please give me a like. Subscribe to me if you're from the other side and listen to what I have to say so that you're getting a different set of facts, so that you get to triangulate on the truth. And don't just listen to me. If you hear me ever say, just believe me because I said it, run away. I'm telling you, triangulate on the facts. That's what you should be doing.
So that's a little different than the impression that you would have gotten from that guy in his comments along the way. And I'm telling you, triangulate on the facts. I'm also going to tell you this: read the other side, because another commenter said, well, so you don't want us to read, you just want us to read what you have to say. I'm like, no, it's not just what I have to say. Read the other side. I read the other side. So here, today, we're going to watch a little bit from the Russian Media Monitor, because I religiously read the other side. Now, there's an old phrase that politics makes strange bedfellows, and they really do. Who started the Russian Media Monitor? Julia Davis. She's a Ukrainian-born American. Okay, it makes sense that she'd be interested. Journalist and media analyst writing for the Daily Beast. And I'm about as conservative as they make them, but we're both unified that Russia needs to be stopped in Ukraine. So thank you, Julia, for all your hard work, and thank you to the Russian Media Monitor. So we're going to look at the segment where the editor of RT is kind of beside herself and seeing what they're saying about how this war is even more meaningful than World War II. Just listen to this. And I'll read her comments. All of these days, I've been thinking about what is more frightening than death. Shame and dishonor are more scary than death. There are some things scarier. People who volunteer to go to war clearly recognize that there are things scarier than death. Physical and emotional pain of losing your loved ones. This unbearable pain is more frightening than death. So is the unbearable pain of losing your motherland. Let's stop there for a moment. They're in no danger of losing their motherland. They're in danger of losing an area that they just grabbed and stole from the Ukrainians, and it's about to be taken back, and that's what they're in danger of.
Утраты своей родины. Нестерпимая боль.
This unbearable pain is more frightening than death. This is being felt very sharply now. Now that's really interesting that it's being felt very sharply right now, because we had this image all along. There's nothing to see here. It's just a special military operation. Don't worry about it, until they had to mobilize. And how long does a 3-day, a commenter pointed this out, how long does a 3-day special military operation actually last? I mean, at what point do you have to say, you know, maybe it's not a special military operation? But it's interesting that she's conceding that it's being very sharply felt right now. And that's why you watch the other side, because you pick up on nuances that you wouldn't otherwise understand.
When
our motherland fights not against Ukraine, but against 50 of the mightiest nations in the world, which is one of the Kremlin's tropes, is that it's Russia against the entire West. And the West is unified against it, but the West isn't actually fighting it. They're just simply supplying Ukraine at this point. But again, this is how she's framing it. I believe that when,
Я
and let
считаю,
me
что
underscore when,
когда, подчеркну это слово
we win
когда,
with
с
God's
Божьей
help,
помощью мы
when we
победим,
win with God's help,
это будет
this
величайший
will be the
подвиг нашей
greatest
истории. Я
feat
не
in
помню,
our
когда
history.
мы
I
воевали
don't
с
recall us ever
50
fighting 50 of the
величайшими
mightiest
государствами
nations
мира одни.
all by ourselves
Одни.
alone. Well, you're not.
У нас есть
We have
нейтральные
allies who are
союзники, есть
more or
более
less
нейтральные.
neutral. Now, that's another really important point. She's recognizing, she's conceding, she's in a great position to see what's going on as the editor of RT. That's right. All their allies are more or less neutral. That's the real position that they're in.
Менее есть помогающие нам,
Of course,
безусловно,
Belarus is
Белоруссия.
helping us,
Но воюем-то мы
but
одни.
we are fighting against
ними
all
со
of them
всеми.
alone.
Это без-
Okay, you either are alone or aren't alone, but let's say Belarus is helping you, and Belarus isn't all that useful because you've taken Belarus's stuff to supplement your corruptly supplied army, and that's a problem.
Безусловно, будет подвиг.
This will definitely
вот,
be a feat.
Что еще страшнее
What
смерти?
else scarier than death?
Страшнее смерти
To see the triumph of
приведи Господь.
evil, God forbid. Wait, the triumph of evil. They're talking about Ukrainians as the winning as the triumph of evil. I mean, isn't that just absolutely amazing?
увидеть торжество зла, торжество
The
лжи.
triumph of lies. This is the editor of RT, perhaps one of the most untrustworthy papers on the planet. And and she's talking about the triumph of lies on the other side.
Что это восторжествует,
God
и
forbid that
приведи
all of
Господь,
that
и
triumph and
останется
to remain
в истории
in the history
человечества,
of
хоть бы даже на
humanity,
несколько
even if only for
десятилетий,
several decades,
восторжествовавшее
for this
мнение.
lie to
Вот
remain
это
as a
ложь.
prevailing
Потому
opinion.
что ложь,
As
как Иисус
Jesus
Христос
Christ
говорил
said
в
in the
Евангелии, Он
Gospels,
дьяволом
okay, she's going to
называл.
work my nerves here. The
Лжец
devil is a
и отец
liar and the
лжи.
father of lies. The devil
А
is
дьявол это
evil. Now, what's interesting here is that Russia has been claiming this garb of Christianity, going back to the old Orthodox, approval of whatever the Tsar was doing. But there's not really a convertedness to this Russian Christianity. There's just this is how we are. Remember, they were formerly Soviet and totally agnostic, totally atheistic, totally away from anything Christianity. But they've been dressing themselves up in this, and this is not what real Christianity is. I'm a Christian. I don't see this at all in there.
И отец лжи.
The devil is
дьявол это и есть
evil.
зло. Поэтому торжество лжи это
The
торжество
triumph of
зла.
lies is the triumph of
и лицезрение.
evil. Again, it's mind-numbing to me that the editor of RT is saying that the triumph of lies is the triumph of evil, but she's pointing to Ukraine as the source of that evil rather than what she has been doing all along in RT. 13-1 statistics in the counteroffensive, and you're passing that along as if it was true.
Впредь такое
God
не
forbid
приведи
anyone
Господь
see
никому.
this happen.
И становится
And it becomes
еще
even more
понятнее,
clear
за что
what our
бьются там
guys are over
наши
there
ребята.
fighting for.
Я все время думаю,
I kept
я
looking at the
смотрю
Kiev regime,
на
at its
киевский
military,
режим, на вот эти вот воинства киевского режима, на западников,
at the
которые
Westerners who are courting
вокруг
this
этого
regime
киевского режима увиваются,
and are
всем его
supporting it in
поддерживают.
every way.
А
They
им не
don't feel
больно.
any
А вы
pain.
знаете, кому не больно?
And that's interesting. They don't feel pain because they're not actually fighting. They feel some inflation, but that's about it because they're not actually fighting. Don't you know who feels no
Они
pain?
уже
The dead.
мертвы.
They're
Это
already
нежить.
dead. They are the
И
undead.
фактически наши
Our army, our
армия,
heroes are fighting against the
наши
undead.
герои воюют с нежитью.
Now, this is the most convoluted discussion that it's going to get worse, but just so the dead, the Ukrainian dead are fighting against Russians and they feel no pain and
житью. Они воюют с
they
этой
fight
тьмой,
the
которая
darkness that drowns
поглощает
out the
свет.
light. They can't
Им не
feel
больно.
pain. They don't
Им все
care.
равно.
So I don't know what just happened here with this guy and what point he was making. First, the West was feeling no pain. Then it's the dead in Ukraine that feel no pain. They're undead and their guys are fighting the undead and they don't care. I can't track what he was saying. But nonetheless, this little few-minute clip was worth watching to unpack a lot of ideas of how Russians are thinking and seeing. And remember, this is meant for Russian public consumption, this type of TV show. So you can learn a lot just by listening to the other side. So please don't listen to the professor. His opinions are worthless. Go as close as AAA said. If you want to get closer to real perspective on the war, go as close as possible to the objective source. I agree. I think that's exactly what you should be doing. By the way, today is Monday, June 12th. It's Russia Day. Russia Day is called the day of the adoption of the Declaration of the State Sovereignty of the RSFSR before 2002, and it's the national holiday of the Russian Federation. I can't prove this, but I have a sneaking suspicion that part of the inflated numbers, and again, this is only my suspicion, it's not the objective source, but the inflated numbers that the Russian Ministry of Defense have been putting out is because just before Russia Day, they want to have a good show of force. Remember, if you back up 1 year ago today, the Russians were busy taking Severodonetsk and were doing a pretty good job at actually capturing the city just before Russia Day. A little bit later, I'm going to be putting out another video about Timothy Snyder talking about how you should be thinking about the dam. You know, Russia was blaming Ukraine, Ukraine was blaming Russia. Ryan Macbeth had a particular perspective about it, how we should be thinking about it, and we're going to go through his bullet point list of how to be thinking about this accurately. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the subscribes. By the way, I put this on here, my book that I wrote in the first 4 or 5 months of the war, I Need Ammunition, Not a Ride. It's free on Kindle Unlimited, and the description is in the links below. Thank you for the likes, the subscribes, the shares. I really appreciate it. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.